Yo, what's up my fellow Maverick Slayers, it's your boy X, and just to keep you fresh on how we're gonna do difficulty rankings, I decided to show it to y'all again. So green represents the easier zones, yellow represents the medium zones, and red represents the harder zones. Also, I forgot to say this, but remember to check my original video, you're gonna like it a lot. If you like this type of rankings, you should check the first one I made. Yes, there are some similarities to Yes on Home 35's video because, like, I have a lot of similar thoughts to him in a lot of the zones of the game. And last but not least, at the time of this video being released, it's gonna be November 24th of 2024. So it's gonna be Sonic 2's 32nd anniversary. So let's go! Green rank, easiest zone, Sky Chase. So we start off with this zone that has our partner will be carrying us in a plane. But what happens is that while the plane is being leaded with our inputs, don't get too confident and start spin dashing like crazy, because you do have a chance of falling off. In this zone there's no boss fight and it's a one-act zone, so it's kinda easy to get through it. But also remember that a lot of enemies will be attacking you by ambush, like surprise attacks, so you will lose a couple of rings. But just remember to be careful and you'll be okay. Emerald Hill. So we follow up with the first zone of Sonic 2. And Emerald Hill is a very easy zone. While slightly harder than Green Hill, I'd say that the only enemies that truly will be a bother are like the monkeys that grab some coconuts and throw them at you. And probably also the bee, but like, that's not really an annoying enemy, you get me? But also, in this zone you can really get a lot of the checkpoints to get the good ending of the game. So please knock down the Chaos Emeralds at the beginning, because like, it's gonna be easier since there are more checkpoints in this zone than like any other in my opinion. So yeah, it's kind of quick, and also these levels are meant to be gone through quickly, because Sonic 2 is more focused on speed than Sonic 1. While the first boss in Sonic 2, the Egg Drill, is a really easy boss to beat, I tell you that really, in my opinion, after the 7th hit on this fight, you really have to be careful because he drops his drill, but it's gonna be a really easy fight, don't worry. You can do this, just remember to be slightly careful, but that's it. Hidden Palace. So now we're in a hidden zone of the game that you can access only by falling down a void in Mystic Cave. This zone has some moderately easy enemies, and it's not so hard to progress through it, but there is water. I know a lot of people will hate me in the comments for putting a zone that has water as an easy zone, but you need to understand that it's not like as hard as like Labyrinth. It's not like the water's not like everywhere. It's just in like specific corners of the level. Now, about the boss fight of this level, I do feel like this zone has a moderately hard boss fight for what it is. Like, I feel like this zone has one of the hardest boss fights in the whole game. But you really need to understand like how it works, so I will explain how the boss fight works. So, Eggman's trumpet will drop a couple of mines every time it sounds. So what happens is he has to dodge the 4 mines. But then after those mines explode and the water rises, there will be happen like a big bomb, and that big bomb, when it comes out, you have to lead it so like when it explodes, it hits Robotnik, and Robotnik falls, and that's when you can hit him. Do that process like a couple of times and you'll finish this fight safe and square. Casino Night. Okay, so this zone is based on a casino. You can get a lot of rings on this zone, and there's some tricky platforming and a lot of roads are closed, but like you'll rarely see enemies on this zone. Like the enemies are just spread scarcely throughout the level, so like it's rare to see enemies. And also because of the slot machines, you can really get up to like 999 rings, which is really good for this. I mean, it's kind of cool in my opinion. And also you can really get a lot of rings, and the boss fight becomes kind of easy. And oh yeah, speaking of the boss fight, this zone's boss fight is kind of easy in my opinion. It's not really that difficult, so you kind of get through it with no problem. But like, be careful with like the little mines he throw at you, because it kind of becomes kind of an obstacle, and you have to avoid them. But it's not that hard. You'll get through it with no problems. Aquatic Ruin. So on this zone there is water, and there are some slight booby traps, like for example the arrows that have the Eggman symbol on them, and some crushing pillars, but nothing really that to be worried about. The enemies on this zone are kind of annoying, like for example the drill robots that pop out of the ground, and also the fly enemies that come like when you get out of the water. And also, yes, this zone does have water. It's not like a Labyrinth zone type of bad, but it is kind of something to be cautious about. Also, if you know this level well enough, you know that you have to go upwards to avoid the water. So yeah, that's just a little pro tip to leave y'all with, because I feel like y'all would need that. The boss fight of this zone is not really difficult. You just have to avoid Eggman hitting like some pillars with a hammer, and they drop arrows. So you have to use the arrows to climb to hit Eggman. And avoid the hammer, of course, but just be careful, and this fight will be okay. Like, you have to be careful with like the arrows and the hammer and all that stuff, but like, just be careful and you'll be okay. Don't worry about it. Hilltop. Hilltop takes place in a mountain in like the upper side of like West Island. And also, this zone is not really like difficult. Sure, it contains lava and there's some moving sections, but like it's not really that difficult. Some enemies are slightly annoying, but like there's some elevators that you can move through to avoid the lava and all that stuff. And there's also like some seesaws to get you to some places. Hilltop's boss fight is the Egg Submarine. So what happens is that Eggman's new robot will dunk into the lava, and like he will shoot like a fire beam. And when he gets into the lava, he will shoot 2 lava balls that will burn the ground for a moment. And what happens is that you'll have to hit Eggman. Mystic Cave. Contrary to popular opinion, I don't feel like this zone is really difficult. Like, sure, there is danger, but like none of it has really bothered me. Like for example, the crushing vine, the fireflies, the centipede robot, or like the moving boxes, or the spikes that pop out of nowhere. Sure, those damage a lot of people, and like people really don't like them, but like for me, it's never been like that difficult. The boss of this zone is a burrowing robot made by Dr. Eggman. So Dr. Eggman is piloting it, and so you have to avoid its drill attacks. And while you can damage it, it's kind of risky to damage it while airborne. And also remember that when he gets upward, to avoid like the little spikes that fall down because of him burrowing the trees. Chemical Plant. If you would have asked 10-year-old me back in 2021 if this was the hardest zone in the game, I would have said yes. But like in my opinion, this is a really hard zone, even though like it's still kind of on medium. So the thing is that this zone has like high speeds, but there are very dangerous enemies on this zone. Like the spider enemies that grab you and explode, or also the enemies that lay on the ground and throw like energy balls at you. The reason why I think this level is hard is because of the water that rises slowly in the second act. Okay, pause. While editing, I saw a YouTube video that was like beating Chemical Plant 2 without the water, and I was like, nah bro, get the fuck out of here, that's crazy. Okay, about the boss fight. The difficulty on this one is kind of absurd, because while the ground falls, you can hit Robotnik 8 times in a row. So like, it's kind of easy, but like at the same time it becomes kind of like absurd. Wing Fortress. This seems like something out of a James Bond movie, I know, but this is a real zone of Sonic 2, and it's kind of a mediumly difficulted one. Okay, while this zone contains a lot of traps and a lot of difficult platforming, it's not that difficult if you have Super Sonic available, which really makes the zone a bit more easier than what it is, which makes it more enjoyable. But still, this is a very well challenging zone. By the end of the game, you should be really skilled, you know? The boss of this zone is not really that difficult. There's just like this beam that pops out, and you have some platforms that will help you rise through it. It is kind of tricky to fight it and avoid the platforms, but if you know how to do it, you know how to do it, so like, you'll get the hang of it. Also, I forgot to say this, but this is a one-act zone. Oil Ocean. Now we get to the hard zones of this game. In my opinion, Oil Ocean is a difficult zone to get through, because like for example, there are annoying enemies like the seahorse and the octopus. While you can go under the oil to get through certain parts of the level, it's not really recommendable to do so, because there's some parts that you can't access, and if you try to get through under them, you just drown in the oil and lose a life. That really reminds me of like the level in like the last world of like Super Mario Bros. 3, where like you can swim through like under the ships, so like you can get to like the boss fight much more quicker. Oil Ocean's boss fight is kind of complex, so Eggman comes out of his submarine, and you have to hit the submarine. But when he goes down to the oil to protect himself, he throws like this huge like claw thing that goes and slides over there. And then when he's done with that, he has like this cannon thing that like will shoot a laser at different heights, and you have to avoid that. But when that laser is finished, he comes and then you can hit him again. Metropolis Zone. Out of the levels in Sonic 2, I'd say this is the hardest one because of like everything that goes on in this zone, and I'll explain to y'all why I think so. So the star enemies, they are in walls, and what happens is that when you get close to them, they explode and their tips go everywhere, so you'll get damaged by it. There's also this crab enemy that will punch you if you get close to him. So he will extend his arm and punch you with it. You have to be careful around him. And there's also like the praying mantis robots, which will throw their spikes at you and they will follow you for a quick moment of time. Y'all ready for the big surprise? Yes, this zone does have a third act. Now, about the third act, it's just the same shit as like the other two levels. Now, about the boss fight on this zone. So, Eggman will have like some floating spheres will turn into like mini clones of him. You have to destroy those mini clones, but unfortunately like, they die at one hit. So, what happens is that once he runs out of clones things, he has this giant laser that he will shoot at you. I know the footage doesn't show it, that's because they're using supersonic and they killed him quickly enough to not show the laser. Death Egg. This is the final zone of the game. So you face against Silver Sonic, or also known as Mecha Sonic. So you have to face him, and be careful when you hit him because his spikes do hurt you, and you have to avoid his ball attack. And also remember that on this level you have no rings, so every damage you take is a one-hit kill for you. So yeah, you're kinda cooked, unless you know how to play this. So now you see Eggman running away from you. And yes, it's ironic how he's way faster than Sonic. I don't know why. And now, the good part. The final boss of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. The Death Egg Robot. So Eggman will slowly walk towards you with his Death Egg Robot. Be careful not to touch the spikes because that's a one-hit kill. Also, when he has that target in you, remember to have him locked in one area and then run from that area. Once he lands, if you land on the front of him, you can land him a free hit. If you're on the back, then you're gonna have to wait to avoid his Death Egg bombs. Also, I forgot to say this, but when you land in front of him, he will either do one of two attacks. He will throw his claws at you, or he will walk towards you. I forgot to say this, but this fight takes 12 hits to win. And keep in mind, you have to do this with no rings, so one hit means you die automatically. In conclusion, Sonic 2 is one of the best games in the Sega Genesis that ever released, and one of the best Sonic games in my opinion. And yeah guys, that's it for this video. See y'all in the next one. Bye! Don't forget Tengenuzui is the best Hashira.